Good morning. Welcome to the September 15th, 2020 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel. Called the meeting to order. Welcome you to the Arkansas Department of Education auditorium and ask that everyone please silence all of their devices. Today's a great day to introduce our charter panel. I believe we're all here. I'm Deborah Kaufman, Assistant Commissioner for Public School Accountability, and on the Zoom is Philip Baldwin. Good morning, Mr. Baldwin. With me in the room is Sonia Wright McMurray. Good morning. On the Zoom is Dr. Nakama Williams. Good morning, Dr. Williams.
Good morning.
On the phone is Toyce Newton. Good morning, Miss Newton.
Good morning.
And also on Zoom today is Dr. Ann Clemmer. Good morning, Dr. Clemmer.
Well, take the doctor off and we're good.
All right, we'll do that. Good morning, Ms. Clemmer. Thank you all for joining us. We have a very short meeting today, but we will have a fair and responsible hearing. I'll ask that everyone that's speaking speak clearly into your microphone on your computer and make sure that you state your full name for the record. So with that, I'll ask our panel members to please look at the minutes from August, and if you have any corrections.
I move approval of the minutes. Second.
Mr. Baldwin has made a motion to approve and a second by Dr. Williams. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. All right, with our action agenda, our first action, Ms. Webb, you're recognized.
Thank you. The Arkansas Virtual Academy is an online open enrollment charter school that serves students in grades K through 12 and has an enrollment cap of 4,000. Today they are requesting an enrollment increase of 1,500 students, and we have Ms. Amy Johnson, the superintendent, and Kristen Allen, the academic administrator for Arkansas Virtual Academy.
I don't believe we have anyone speaking in opposition, so you want to go over the procedures this morning for everyone?
Good morning, Mary Claire Hyatt. The procedures for the amendment request is that Ms. Johnson will have 20 minutes to present ARVA's amendment request. Since there's no one speaking in opposition, we'll remove that time from the procedures. She'll have the opportunity to have an additional 5 minutes if necessary, and then you can ask questions and engage in discussion before voting.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, Ms. Allen, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Thank you. You're recognized. You have 20 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Amy Johnson. I'm the head of school at Arkansas Virtual Academy. Madam Chair, members of the panel, thank you for the opportunity to have a few moments of your time today. We will likely not need our full 20 minutes. This is a request that you have heard recently from us. We do have a slide deck with some recent data, and I am going to do my best to try to share that if all of the technology cooperates, right? All right. Everybody see that okay on your end? Okay, good deal. I never really know. I always have to check if it's going to be the right size or, micro. So thank you again for letting us be with you today. This is the third time we've seen you in the last 12 months. The first time for our renewal last December. I know we have some new members since we were with you in July for a request of an expansion in our cap then to house the extra interest that was coming because of COVID. You've seen this quote from me before. This is a mantra for our school, in that we're not interested in what is easy, we're interested in what is right for Arkansas students. And if I told you that anything that any educator is experiencing right now was easy, that would be very naive. You all are working hand in hand with so many educators across the state, and certainly with our charter schools, and we all are working very quickly and as accurately as possible to help seat students, to help provide those opportunities for them in the middle of what none of us could have predicted, and certainly can't predict where we'll go from here. So we are asking for a 1,500 seat increase. And within that increase, what we're looking at for our current enrollment, we are at our 4,000 student cap. We are currently waitlisted. We have 915 applications in process. And this is a lower amount than what we've seen in the last several months. Some of that is dictated because we did go to a wait list, but some of that is also dictated, as I'm sure you can imagine, that school has begun. So students aren't making as much movement right now, but we do have those 915 applications that are still looking for a seat with us. We currently have 112 students on the wait list that, if we did have those open seats, would be coming right away to Arkansas Virtual Academy. And while we have seen a slower intake with enrollment than what we were seeing clearly in July, because school hadn't started yet, we do still see consistent interest from families for a variety of reasons. We see the reasons of normal interest. Maybe there's a medical issue, maybe their current situation just isn't working out for them. But we also see an uptick in students who maybe they've had COVID themselves, maybe their family is experiencing the illness, and maybe the school where they are is just pivoting in a way that isn't conducive to their learning. The zig and zag of the delivery is a struggle for them. So we hear all different types of reasons for coming from our families. Now, it might be interesting, a question in your mind to think, well, if you have 915 applications to process, 112 students on the wait list, why 1,500? The reason that we've asked for 1,500, first and foremost, is we did just grow by 1,000 in our plan. I'll give you some stats here in a little bit to show that our plan to grow by that much was effective. So we do feel like we can do the 1,000. We don't feel like we're necessarily going to jump with the same rate that we did in July, again, because we don't have as many applications in process. But the idea behind 1,500 is to have that cushion, is to have some runway, because we can't predict what's going to happen. We're not sure how this virus is going to twist and turn, what schools are going to need, what students are going to need. And so as much as I know you all enjoy the ARVA's repeated appearances in front of the panel, we'd like to get a little bit of a runway on that cap to have some seats available so that we're not bumping up against it all the time. We always like to share with you our academic progress. This is something that we have been very transparent and open with the panel, that this is our primary goal, to improve the academics for ARVA. We did have a 22% improvement in growth year over year last year for our students. And so we feel like the changes that we've made academically, the remediations, the increase in teacher effectiveness that we have shared with the panel previously have been effective. We are continuing to assess our students. We just are in the middle of, sort of towards the end of the window, catching up our stragglers of our beginning of the year assessment. We use STAR 360, and we do that beginning, middle, and end of the year. So you can see our completion rates here. This is without our K2 students. K2 is just beginning because we do the STAR assessment with K2 through the state within the state windows, the required windows. So that's just beginning for our K2 students. We have a 78% overall completion rate to date. Now, let me explain what this means. This is 78% of our students who have completed both assessments. We track this very specifically because we feel like it's very important that they complete both, so that we get a well-rounded picture of where a student is at the beginning of the year when they come to us. And then you can see that we have the 81% completion rate for reading, just that assessment, and 83% completion rate for math. Now, when we assess these students, I always like to explain that the completion rate, it seems like, well, why isn't it 100%? You just give them the login information, they go take the test, and they're done. That should be very simple. We actually proctor these assessments. We utilize Zoom, and we go into breakout rooms with them, cameras on, microphones on, and we assure that there's no adult in the room helping them with the assessment. We want valid results, even though they are virtual results. And so this does take some scheduling, and it takes some time. And so now we are working on rescheduling all of our students that maybe missed their test time, going back to get those assessments. For us, the most important thing is that we have those beginning of year scores, because then our teachers and our data team work through those assessments, and they identify the areas that students really need the most remediation for. So this is an important component for us. We'll do this again in January, and then we'll do it again even after state assessments in the spring. We'll do it again in May, so that we have a full look at a student's growth throughout the year and can really assess and help that student grow in the way that they need to. I have to take just a minute and brag on our elementary students. This just happened this week. I don't know if you all are familiar with Hoda and Jenna and the Today Show, but our elementary students were featured by Hoda and Jenna on their social media platforms this last week. They started a program last spring to reach out to nursing home residents. So as you all know, one of the most difficult things about this virus has been that our nursing homes can't have visitors. And so as part of our reading program and as part of our community service outreach that is very important to us at ARVA, our elementary students created a YouTube channel, and they all submitted videos of themselves reading their favorite books. And we worked in cooperation with just over 35 nursing homes across the state, and made the YouTube channel available to those nursing homes. And many of the nursing homes used the channel on their closed circuit televisions or during their activity time that normally they would have visitors. And nursing home residents were able to hear our students read books to them, so that they still had some outside contact, they had contact with youth, and it was a great opportunity for our students to still serve, and also a great part of our ARVA Reads RISE initiative to ensure that students are actively reading. So Hoda and Jenna just featured this week. We're very excited that they got national attention for such a great outreach in the middle of a pandemic and being community service minded at a time when normally we're all very contained. So those are pieces that we continue to work on with our student body as a whole. We have a community service outreach day 3 times a year, and so we're working very diligently to find ways to do those virtually this year in light of the pandemic. We are continuing to assess family satisfaction and teacher onboarding. I think that this is a really important piece when you think about our ability to grow. Our family satisfaction is remaining stable. We just grew by over 1,000 students, and we have a 2% increase in our year-over-year satisfaction survey for our parents. So while that's not a large swing, it is a swing that's positive, and it is a swing that shows that we were able to, with stability, onboard many more new families in the same way and with the same quality. We've added 40 new staff, and we're successfully onboarding them to ensure student success. We have a very specific new teacher strategy and training platform that we use. And we also have found that one of our best training measures is to simply partner a new teacher with a veteran teacher that can be their go-to, that can help them with questions. And they do some peer shadowing. They do sort of what we call walk to class for teachers, where they get to see how that instruction works. So we're very excited about, especially our family satisfaction, because anytime you take on several new students, that's our first concern. We want to make sure that we do that well and that we're still serving our families well. So what are parents saying? And I won't take the time to read every word to you here, but these are some direct quotes from our parents that talked about what ARVA has meant to them in the middle of COVID. And so you're going to see some common threads here. You're going to see they have special needs students that are at higher risk. And so it's important for them to have this opportunity because they do feel like they can keep their child in a safer environment. Several mention no hiccups. Our students come to school with us and they get to continue on the same platforms and the same educational experience regardless of what happens with COVID. We have the blessing that we don't have to worry about pivoting because we're already here. So that was a big piece that was important to our families. And probably my favorite one on this page is the very last bullet. This parent says, "This is what it means to me. Our son was in ARVA for 6 years and we would do it again. It was the best choice we made." And she included the picture that you see here when she sent me her feedback. And so I thought, gosh, that picture speaks more than most any word could, because this is what it meant to this particular family. So just basically in summary, we are asking for the 1,500 student student increase in cap to ensure that we can seat students as they would need our virtual environment. And we would be happy to take questions and to have any discussion that you all would feel reasonable.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Hyatt, do you have any issues or legal concerns? Ms. Webb, any issues or concerns? All right, then we'll start with questions from the panel. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, thank you. And good presentation, very organized, and I think you hit most of the points I was thinking about. Let me ask though, and I know you are doing this virtually, but is there any infrastructure, either people or technology, that you need to implement to do this, or have you already implemented and it's just a matter of getting us to approve it and then you're ready to go?
That's a great question. Structurally, we're pretty sound. One of the things, and I'm sure you all have heard this before, one of the things that we continually work to solve is just internet access for our families. So we were part of the state's hotspot initiative, but the hotspots were based on your fourth quarter ADM. And that's a very different number than where we are right now, and a very different number than where we'll likely be even in a couple months. So we are trying to work with some providers to make sure that we can provide what is needed, and to make sure that all students have equal access. We have a family resource counselor that's very good about also providing information and opportunities for free internet access within a student's particular geographical area. But I would say that's probably our biggest barrier, the one that we really work to solve continually for our students, is to make sure that they can cross that digital divide. We supply laptops, printers, those pieces are an easier gap for us to fill than, I wish I had the skills to go out and run some internet lines. But that's one of those issues that we see across the state. I know even for our brick and mortar students.
Okay. Thank you.
Sonia Wright McMurray, any questions? All right. Dr. Williams?
Yes, just a couple. What would be your all's overall capacity? You're requesting 1,500, if I hear it correctly. 1,000 is kind of realistic, and you have about 500 student cushion. So are we saying at 15, the addition of these students, you all can handle this capacity? Okay. What area of the state are you students coming from?
Well, we actually have students in all 75 counties of the state, believe it or not. We have what you would consider as the normal hotspots: north, west, northeast, and central. So that's where, we have sort of, if you think of it in a heat map type situation, those would be our largest hotspots. But we do have enrollment actually from every single county in the state. So it's a very widespread interest. Of course, more rural areas, we have a smaller number of students, but we do have that vast representation.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Newton, any questions?
I do. I don't know whether well, I think maybe the question. I was following up on what Phil said about the technology, and I know you provide the devices for young people, but and kids are generally savvy as it relates to the devices and the use of it. Do you ever run into situations where either the young person or the family just doesn't possess the capability to be able to exchange information and learn virtually based on the equipment they have? And if you do, Amy, have that situation, how do you address it?
That's a great question, Toyce. And it's very rare, to your point, that we have students that don't have sort of that capacity. I'll give you an example, though, that's fairly common, not widely, but fairly common. If we have grandparents that are raising their grandchildren and they are serving as the learning coach, we find that that's a really big gap in understanding. We have to work very diligently with our grandparents as learning coaches. Not all. Some grandparents are very savvy. I'm a grandparent. I'd like to think that I'm savvy, but
I'm a grandparent and I'm not. I'm a grandparent and I'm not.
Well, there you go. So, so what we do is we actually have a team of advisors. We call them our student heroes. We actually have an acronym that's CAPE for the heroes that they serve as, and they are a single point of contact for our most struggling learning coaches. And they will literally get in Zoom, ask those learning coaches to share their screen. They'll walk them through submitting work. When we could go face-to-face, we were willing to meet them, in their area to provide that support and sit side by side with them. So this particular team of student advisors the majority of them have also served as learning coaches. And so they're very well equipped on what it takes, what parts are sort of not intuitive as much as others. And they really serve as a right hand, somebody that can just lock arms with a learning coach that has more of those technology struggles. So it's very rare that the technology itself is a struggle as much as just that understanding and bridging that gap and really helping. I would love to say we graduate all those learning coaches to a full understanding. Some of them, the majority of them do become very independent, but we do have some that we help along through their entire time with us. And so we've just found it to be very, very helpful to make sure that they have that one person that's sort of their 911 that they know they can go to no matter what and get a quick answer. And so that's been a really successful program for us in bridging that gap.
Thank you.
Ms. Clemmer, questions?
I don't really have any. I have, in full disclosure, served on the board of ARVA. I stepped down a year ago after we merged with ADE. So I feel like I'm pretty familiar with how they operate, and I endorse the proposal because I know how diligent they are, and I've had friends whose kids have gone through their program.
Ms. Johnson, you did such a really great job of explaining how you're utilizing your interim assessments. Talk to us a little bit about your plans to be prepared for providing the state summative assessments. So DLM, ACT, Aspire, kind of talk us through how you handle those situations.
So currently, what I like to say in a quote unquote normal world, let me tell you how we do those pieces. And then, based on what happens with our current environment, we'll adjust to some sort of a modified version, I'm sure. But currently for our state assessments for ACT Aspire, we deliver all of those face-to-face. We actually rent, it's a little bit of a budget and event planning issue. We actually rent about 21 locations across the state to ensure that students don't have a significant travel time before they test, because nobody tests well if they've been in the car for 2 hours. And so we deploy our teachers. This has been, our testing coordinator, Lauren Throneberry, is fantastic. And she's been with us, I think we're getting ready to go in our 4th year. I may be a year off on that, I lose track. And she coordinates our staff with site coordinators that are incredibly well trained and veteran site coordinators. They're very experienced in running sites the state regulations and state requirements. We deploy our staff, and they go into the field for a full 2 weeks while we assess our students. We have a massive information campaign that goes out that our students understand where they're testing and when they need to be there, what they can expect when they get there. We actually send out tours, video tours to our students. One of the things that's hard for us, a gap that's hard for us to jump, is a comfort in testing environment. As you can imagine, in a brick and mortar building, most of the time students are walking down the hall to the computer lab that they've been in, 15 times already. Our students are going to a room they've never been before, and they may have some staff there that they've never met before. So one of the things we've launched is a video tour of their sites and to meet their coordinators before they ever get there to create that comfort. And so our staff infiltrates these sites across the state and mans them. We utilize certified teachers as testing assistants to help us with those test sites. And we have tested at just above 99% of our students every year for the last 4 years. So believe it or not, with all of that event planning, because it's really what it is, it's what I tell people all the time, it's event planning, we're still able to get a very high percentage of completion. We let our families know on the onset that this is a requirement of their enrollment with us. This is a requirement for them to be able to continue with us. And so they take it very seriously as well. We run DLM right alongside that process. So we do it the exact same way if we need to hold that assessment outside of ACT Aspire window. We set it up the exact same way, but we do run several of those alongside that same testing window when we do ACT Aspire. So it's a big event. We ramp up for it. We were actually very disappointed we didn't get to test last spring because our teachers had done such good hard work in really digging in to see growth for our students. So it's the culminating event for us truly in so many ways at ARVA, because it is not only is it a large face-to-face event, but it is orchestrated very carefully to ensure we get all students assessed.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sonia?
Could you talk a little bit about some of the ways you guys are supporting your students with special needs that may have learning disabilities or challenges through this process?
Absolutely. So this is another fairly orchestrated event. We like to tell people when they ask us questions about what we do, we can do most anything a physical brick and mortar school can do. It's just usually harder. It takes quite a bit more planning and a little bit more effort. And so our special education department, I'm very proud of. We work very closely with the Department of Ed to ensure that we have all of our ducks in a row, and in fact have cooperated with the Department of Ed during COVID to share how we do special education virtually. How do we assess? How do we supply the minutes? How do we meet the needs of the IEPs so that that can be shared with other schools when they have to go virtual? So we do very much like testing. We utilize those assessors that need to provide those assessments for placement with special ed across the state, and we contract with them and deploy them when those assessments need to be given, when somebody completes a child find or we have a test request from a parent. And then we hold IEPs through Zoom virtually, just like what we're doing right here. We have a way where parents can sign virtually right in our meeting. We have a specific program we use for that. Our teachers keep up with minutes. We have class within a class, co-teaching. We have some resource classes that have worked really well for us. That's new just in the last couple years. Full credit for our special education students. And then for those sorts of therapies and extended resources, if they can't be provided virtually and still be a benefit to the students, some things can be, but clearly if you need occupational therapy, for me to do that with you virtually seems a little bit pointless, right? So we actually contract with therapists and providers all across the state. It is a huge orchestrated event, and we keep contracts in all areas of the state because, again, we have students from all 75 counties. And they deploy, they know, we have their schedules, we know when those students are taking part in those therapies, and we communicate back and forth with them. Those therapists actually come to IEP meetings when we hold them, those annuals, to review, to give reports on how those therapies are going. And we really just sort of cover our students. We just put a team around them, some virtual and some geographically right where they are, and make sure that we provide absolutely everything that they would need.
Ms. Coughlin, I have a question at this time.
Go ahead, Ms. Newton.
There's so many things that were unanticipated, even for those folks that are technology savvy, like Dr. Williams and others. But is there a mechanism that the department is using to be able to take the lessons learned and the best practices from the virtual environment or for the virtual world, especially from this particular provider, to be able to share those with the local districts? I know some are doing well and some are doing better than others, but I'm sure that some are really struggling in the barriers that these folks seem to have already worked through. So is there an opportunity to be able to make connections with providers that have figured it out and help our districts to move forward?
So, yes, I think Ms. Johnson's kind of identified that the department has reached out and asked to kind of describe those lessons learned and how to share that information. Our leadership team has been working very diligently with all of our schools across the state, and we have pretty regular meetings with many of our stakeholders to identify resources and to get those out there and shared. So, yes, I think that's happening. I think Ms. Johnson can attest to that.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. If I remember correctly, that was one of the pillars behind establishing charters, is to be able to collect a better way of doing it or connectivity, and be able to share those lessons out across the state.
And Ms. Newton, I'd also add too, not only in reference to special education, but our district testing coordinator that I mentioned has also met with the testing folks at the department. They were very anxious to hear how we deploy testing virtually, how we monitor that and proctor that to ensure that we have valid results even in a virtual environment. So we have had several reach outs from the department in different areas, from other schools, both brick and mortar public and charter schools, who have asked, hey, how do you do this? We've really worked to seek any partnerships, any opportunities. The APSRC has also been a huge help in that, asking, hey, have you guys figured this out? Because this is a problem that we're seeing. And so there's been a lot of conversation about, what we've done. And I appreciate the way that you phrased that, because I tell people all the time, we certainly have not solved all of the issues. We are hammering away at them just as quickly as they come. But to your point, there are things that we already carry the battle scars for that I think, it's important that we do share that, because there's some steps that we can take more swiftly for the students in Arkansas and in a more accurate direction. And I think that that's a really important piece. And to your point, the reason why ARVA exists, if you go back and look at some of those early transcripts, ARVA was created with a lab mindset in place to figure out not only virtual learning, but also innovations in learning in general. And so we've tried to stay true to that in the unique things that we utilize with our students. We don't rest. We're currently launching project-based learning at all levels in our school. We're doing projects with kindergarten students this year. And so I'm anxious to share how that goes. I think it's going to be, it could be a little bit of, I think it's going to be really good, but I think there'll be some barrels and monkeys along the way that will be a lot of fun to watch. And so we're really still pushing that envelope because we feel like we do have the ability to do some of those things, like you mentioned, to really move forward in an innovative way, not only just for our students, but for the learning of educators across the state.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for an increase for the Arkansas Virtual Academy to 1,500 slots.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Newton, a second by Ms. Wright McMurray. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Panel members, I'll ask that you go into your voting sheet and take just a moment to complete that.
I'm into mine, but I can't work in it, so I don't know what the next step is for me. But I'm for the amendment, and because the need has been demonstrated and verified, but I can't work within this document.
All right, if you will, Ms. Newton, if you'll contact Tracy Webb
I'll do that.
and dictate what you want her to put in there, she'll do that for you.
Okay, I'll do it.
Ms. Johnson, thank you for an excellent presentation today. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Instead of asking each panel member to read that, I will just summarize and say that the panel believes that your presentation was excellent. The increase in enrollment is well considered and will provide additional option for Arkansas students. So congratulations, and we will move this forward to the State Board for review.
Thank you all very much. It was good to see you, and I hope you all are doing well.
Thank you. Action item 2, Ms. Hyatt, if you will address the panel.
Mary Claire Hyatt, Access has decided to withdraw their application for the charter school in the Harrisburg School District because you placed on the table last time, but because they have withdrawn it, there's nothing to take off the table at this point, so there doesn't need to be a vote. If you have any questions about that, I don't think we have a representative from there today, but I'm sure we could ask them and get back with you.
Any questions from the panel members?
Yes. What are their options now? They've withdrawn. I'm assuming we will not see them for the remainder of the year, but are they out for good, or they can resubmit at a later time?
They are free to resubmit in the next application cycle. I think those applications are due in the spring/early summer of 2021. I know that particular charter school has applied for a charter before this application cycle, so we may very well see them again.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Webb, that concludes our agenda. Any last words from any of our panel members? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion by Dr. Williams and a second by Mr. Baldwin to adjourn. All those in favor? Meeting
Aye.
meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Great presentation.